The Annabelle doll is locked in the Warren's artifacts room to prevent it from wreaking havoc, but when all the spirits in the artifacts room are awakened by one of the idiots who goes snooping around in the room, the doll, as well as other spirits, begin to cause trouble for the Warren's 10-year-old daughter, her babysitter, and her friends. So as far as the Conjuring universe goes, I have pretty mixed feelings on it. On the one hand, I really enjoyed The Conjuring 1 and 2, and I thought that Annabelle Creation was a huge step up in terms of quality, especially considering it was coming off the back of a movie that nobody really liked. On the other hand, as you may have already guessed, I didn't like Annabelle 1 or The Nun, but I'd yet to see The Curse of La Llorona, and while I do plan on watching that movie purely to catch up on what I missed and also so I can actually pronounce the title right, from the sounds of things, that movie didn't do too well either. Now we have Annabelle Comes Home, which is the third movie in the Annabelle trilogy, as well as the seventh movie in the Conjuring universe, which I was really excited for. Like I said, I really enjoyed Annabelle Creation. I thought that was a really fun horror movie with great scares, brilliant performances, characters that I actually cared about, and a story that was actually well written, which for some reason is really hard to do with any other movie in this franchise that doesn't have the words The Conjuring written somewhere in the title. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about those movies yet. I'm going to talk about Annabelle Comes Home. So let's get to the pros. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga show up once again as Ed and Lorraine Warren in their first on-screen appearance outside of the Conjuring movies, and they're great. They aren't in the movie for a whole lot, but I've become so invested in these two over the years that it's kinda hard not to enjoy them when they're on screen. Their chemistry is magnetic, the way they bounce off each other is really fun and entertaining, and their performances are as good as they always are. Generally, the acting from basically everyone in this movie is great. There is not a single weak link amongst the cast of this movie. Even actors who really aren't in a movie all that much really do give it their all. I think the best performance for me was definitely McKenna Grace as the Warren's daughter. She was excellent. This is one of the best performances from a child actress I think I've ever seen. Her performance was very grounded in realism, and it's partly that as well as her clearly amazing acting talent that she was able to pull off a convincing portrayal of someone who feels like an outcast amongst almost everyone else when she doesn't really want to feel like that or even be an outcast. I'm in love with the film's setting. Annabelle Comes Home for the most part takes place within the Warrens' house, which is a cool setting. It's a great way to save money and a fantastic way to force the filmmakers to get creative so that they can find the best ways to keep their audience gripping the arms of their seats for dear life, to find ways to make the characters interesting and what you can do with them to make it something worth getting invested in. Which leads me to the cons. The characters in this movie, albeit portrayed very well by the cast, don't really feel like they have anything to do with the movie's plot. Yeah, all three of the girls that are now trapped in the Warrens' evil spirit-infested house of trauma have backstory. Shitty things have happened to them in the past, but there's nothing happening to them now. And I know that sounds weird. You might even be thinking to yourself, but Jack, they're being attacked by evil spirits. Yeah, that's exactly what happens, you're right. What I actually mean by that statement is, well, there's almost nothing in this movie that progresses their characters beyond what happened in their backstories. I didn't feel like there was any attempt to grow or develop these characters. For example, there's this one character played by Michael Cimino who has a crush on one of the girls in this house. That's it. That's his entire character. He adds basically nothing to the movie. They also missed a great opportunity in terms of character development. That being that one of the characters in this movie has a history with one of the entities in this movie. I think it would have been cool to explore the effect that the previous encounters with that entity had on that particular character. It would have given the movie a focus and a reason for the audience to care about the character. But that's not what happens. It's addressed once or twice, and then it's just dropped, never to be seen or heard of again. In effect, making that character appear as though they have nothing to do with the plot of this movie, which is the same for most of the characters in this movie. Speaking of the plot of this movie, here's the thing. There isn't one. I'm not even kidding, there is barely anything resembling a plot in this movie. When I go to see movies, I want to see characters, I want to get invested in the plot. What the characters are doing. I want to be engaged in some sort of narrative, and this movie can't even do that because there is no narrative! Okay, I'm calm. I'm perfectly calm. I'm not angry. I'm just annoyed. Let's move on. It feels like a cash grab. It just comes off as a result of someone in the studio going, "Hey, that last Annabelle movie was so good. Let's make another one set in a haunted house so it'll be super cheap." There's no justification for this movie's existence beyond making money. All it is just people walking through hallways and hearing strange sounds. Also, why is this movie rated R? There's like a smidge of blood in 2 shots. That's it. Gary Doberman wrote and directed this movie, and he also wrote the script for The Nun, and I think the guy has got potential, but unfortunately the fact that he wrote The Nun is why I'm not surprised that one of that movie's biggest problems has carried over into this movie. There are entire sequences of this movie that are built purely around jump scares without giving a crap about the plot or the characters in those sequences. The character will look at something. The camera pans away as the character turns. The character turns back. The camera follows, and now something's changed. But oh, what's this? It's not quite ready yet. The music gets louder, the character turns around, and then turns back again, and guess what? Something's changed again, and now the music is even louder. And the character turns around, once again, they turn back, and boom! Jump scare. The entire last half of this movie is basically just a million sequences of just that. There is not a single one of those sequences that feels fresh, original, scary, or even like it's building character. It's just people walking through hallways building up some sort of loud sound. The scares in this movie aren't even remotely scary. I didn't even feel tense. There was never a moment where I was feeling unsettled because the scares are so predictable. It was so obvious when they were setting up a jump scare that me and my friend were basically sat there with our fingers going 3, 2, 1. And the funniest part was that every time we nailed it. There was a jump scare within a few moments, and because of how predictable it was, there's no tension. It's just bzzz, it's gone. None of the scares are scary because the movie pretty much lets you know when to brace yourself so that when the scare actually happens, it's not even scary. The movie is basically just a long series of predictable scares with no narrative, and none of the scares are actually effective. Anytime there was even a remotely cool-looking scare, it was only because they were borrowing them from one of the other movies. There are points where it genuinely felt like they were copy and pasting scares from the other movies, just with different ghosts. It's a shame because I think the entities that are introduced in this movie have potential. They look amazing, but they are wasted on these predictable, ineffective, copied and pasted scares. What's more, these entities, similarly to the living and breathing characters in this movie, have nothing to do with the movie. The only reason they're even in it is so they can set up more spin-offs, like the previous movies did. Yeah, I know The Conjuring introduced us to Annabelle and then she got horror movie, The Conjuring 2 introduced us to The Nun and then she got horror movie, and they've been talking about making a Crooked Man movie for ages now. Seriously, WB, where is that movie? Come on, I'm actually excited for that movie, make it already! But at least those characters actually had something to do with the plot of the movies they were introduced in. The entities that are introduced in this movie are basically there to just go, hey, go see my movie when it comes out. It almost feels like there's a suit who walks into the writer's room every day and says, I wonder if we can throw some random entities that we can use in this movie to set up more movies. Ugh, screw it, let's just do it. Those movies probably won't be any good, and we'll probably make this movie worse by trying to set those movies up in this one, but at least it'll make us money. It's really disappointing because this is a cinematic universe of horror movies. These movies should be freaking amazing. The idea of this is pure genius. Do what they did with Marvel, but with horror movies. So I don't understand why nobody behind these movies seems to be concerned about making good movies outside of the Conjuring movies and Annabelle creation. It feels like they're only making these for the money, and that's exactly what this movie feels like. A cash grab, and nothing more. Annabelle Comes Home has great performances, good production design, and fabulous cinematography, but this movie is seriously lacking in its narrative, characterization, creativity, and direction. Annabelle Comes Home ironically gets a 3 out of 10. So those are my thoughts on Annabelle Comes Home. I do hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and letterboxd.com. Yes, I'm on there now. Follow me if you want to, not forcing you. Anyway, before I go, I would just like to ask you guys, what did you think of Annabelle Comes Home? Did you think it was good? Did you think it was bad? Did you think it was somewhere in the middle? Please leave your thoughts down in the comments below. And until next time, I'll see you around. Take care.